Welcome to August Tech of the Month, where we bring you the latest news and reviews. This month we've got the results of a carbon fibre deep section wheel group test, we've got new rubber from the likes of Challenge and Vittoria, and we see the resurgence of a revolutionary material in the world of cycling. But what is it? And is it any good? We've also got the Garmin Giveaway, so be sure to stick around for that one, and of course our choice for Bike of the Month. So as you can all see, we're currently holding wheels, and that's because Simon recently took on a wheel group test. 6 of the most prominent wheels, would you say? How were they?
Yeah, I mean, I would say they went from wheels costing less than £1,000 to wheels costing £2,500, like these Cadex 65s. So basically, I decided that the average enthusiast rider who's a good rider, you know, maybe like the likes of us, we like to think that we're not too bad, but we don't really need to spend £2,500 on a wheel that's used in a pro peloton, like these Cadex 65s or the Roval Rapide CLX2s, which are also ridden in the pro peloton. So where is the sweet spot? This is basically what I was looking at. Now, these are the cheapest ones at £969, which is still, you know, a good chunk of money, and these are really good wheels. I really like these wheels. The spokes are round rather than bladed, and they're not made of carbon like these. They're a little bit heavier than you'd expect. I mean, these come in at just over 1,500 grams. These are more like 1,700. So it's not a vast difference, and I thought that these actually give you quite good value for money. Another set of wheels that I really liked were these hand-built wheels from Steyr. That's a London-based company in East London. They build wheels to order by hand, and it's really nice to have your wheels built by a human being rather than a machine. You can have silver hubs if that's what you like.
Oh,
I like those silver hubs. Those are Hope RS4 hubs, but you can choose your hub as well from a few options that they offer. Those are really nice wheels. They're competitively priced at £1,250. They're lightweight at sort of in the 1500s. They roll really fast. I really enjoyed riding them, so they're a really good option. I also looked at the new Dura-Ace wheels, the C50s, which go with the new 12-speed group set, and they actually are competitively priced, much more competitively priced than you'd think, being Dura-Ace, at something like sort of £700 less than these. Which is pretty incredible.
That's very
good. So they actually, despite the Dura-Ace name, offer really good value for money. They're lightweight as well, they're fast, they just felt great. The only problem with them is that they have the free hub, which is only compatible with the new 12-speed cassette. So they want you to be part of the new ecosystem, the new Shimano 12-speed ecosystem.
So what else did you have on test?
Okay, well, the winner actually was the Zip 404 Firecrest.
Wow.
Now, this latest version of that wheel has come down in price by £800 because they're hookless now. The straight walls are easier and cheaper to produce. So Zip's passed on the savings to the customer, which I think is really good.
That's really good. I mean, to get a wheel set like that for much cheaper and much lighter, you get something that's greatly improved upon. So across all these wheels then, really, the Zips have hit. Retail price has obviously come down, which is obviously great for the consumer. You've got a great ride feel, you get those aero benefits, and it's just a robust wheel set, isn't it, that you can use quite a lot.
In the width wars, the internal rim width wars,
yes,
the Zip actually has the widest as well, at 23 millimetres.
23 millimetres.
Wider than these Cadexes.
So you can pop a set of 28s on there, or even 30s, and you know, you're not going to be mushrooming out. You're just going to get a very strong supported sidewall, very comfortable, good contact patch of the road.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, we just decided they could pretty much do anything, and so you know, they were the winners.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, great stuff. Well, there we go, everyone. Zip 404s. That's what you need. So, as promised, we've got some brand new rubber from Vittoria first up, and here we have the Vittoria Corsa N.ext tyres. What are they, and are they any good? So, the new Vittoria Corsa N.ext is designed to go head-to-head, or tread-to-tread, with the Continental Grand Prix 5000 and the Schwalbe 1 TLE. Vittoria see the Corsa with the cotton casing as Dura-Ace, okay,
whereas the Grand Prix 5000 and the Schwalbe Pro 1 TLE are Ultegra.
Interesting.
Yeah. What's the contention there?
Well, the cotton casing of the Corsa is fragile, it's meant for sort of racing at pro level, whereas the nylon casing of the Grand Prix 5000 and the Schwalbe is a bit more durable, puncture resistant, and it's more aimed, although it is used in pro racing obviously, it's more aimed at sort of enthusiasts, racers and sort of people interested in performance rather than pro competition. Right. So Vittoria sort of have seen themselves as missing out in this category up until now, which is why they've got this tyre, which has a nylon casing, and which is priced actually just below the Grand Prix 5000 and the Schwalbe.
So they are trying to essentially undercut
Yeah.
the direct tyre rival.
Exactly, yeah. So this is their Ultegra tyre. It's got some really good figures though, actually. It weighs pretty much the same, just over 300 grams as the Corsa, the cotton casing Corsa. To make it more resistant and more durable, they've added silica to the compound as well as graphene, and that apparently also improves its wet weather grip. So it's got good wet weather grip, good durability, good puncture resistance, and costs a bit less than the Continental and the Schwalbe.
Yeah, is this tubeless as well, or is it tube type only?
It's tubeless, and it's actually Vittoria's first hookless compatible tyre, road tyre.
So we know Continental can kind of slightly play around with their TPI numbers. What's the Vittoria, and how does that come out?
Okay, so first of all, the Vittoria, the Corsa with the cotton casing has a really high TPI count of 320 because it's cotton, so it's really supple, thin. Nylon has a much lower TPI always. Now this has a TPI of 100, which sounds very low. The Continental says that the GP5000 has a TPI of 330, but actually what that is 3 layers of 110 TPI nylon folded over to make added together to make 330. This actually has also 3 plies. It's folded over 3 times, but Vittoria aren't saying that makes 300. It's just 100.
So what were they actually like to ride?
Yeah.
How did they feel?
They're really nice, and I actually used them with the stayer wheels there that we talked about earlier on. They went on not very easily, I have to say, but for tubeless that's not necessarily a bad thing because they sealed really nicely, really well. They popped on really easily. They were really supple. They felt really nice. They felt fast. And we've had this heat wave recently, so I can't say I've ridden them actually in the rain to test out their wet weather grip. But the grip in the dry was really good.
Care to say if they were better or worse than the Continentals? Would you be able to rank them at all?
I don't think they're any worse than the Continentals, but it's really hard to say if they're better. And I think I would say they are on a par with the Continentals, actually.
Well, I guess then, on a par, when you consider you're getting a saving just from the cost point of view for the consumer, maybe that's going to make some decisions.
Yeah, they're a little bit cheaper. They are a little bit cheaper for sure. And if the performance is pretty much the same, then Vittoria are onto a winner with these, I'd say.
So actually, this all sounds very positive. Is there any downside to these tyres?
Well, at the moment, there's no tan wall version. But if we flag that up right now, then hopefully that's something that Vittoria can deal with in the future.
Fingers crossed.
From the new nylon casing Corsa tyres, we've got some cotton casing tyres from Challenge, which are really almost going in the opposite direction. They're all about speed, aren't they, and suppleness and TPI count.
Well, it's a really good point you bring up there, actually, because these do have a very high TPI. These are 350. They are on a cotton casing, so yes, they are incredibly smooth. The thing, though, about these that Challenge have brought up is that they do boast about their wet weather grip and their durability as well. So it does almost feel as though they're branding them as a bit more of a everyday fast, kind of an all-round kind of fast tyre, because there is also some built-in puncture protection as well in this. So very supple casing, cotton casing, and I think you'll agree, they look fantastic. But they do feel slightly confused to me, because if you're going to call a tyre the Criterium, you'd expect more compromises in terms of puncture resistance for the sake of out-and-out speed. Whereas where you've got wet weather grip and you've got puncture protection in this, I don't know whether it necessarily fits kind of that high TPI count. Maybe they could have made a faster tyre.
I get your point about being maybe like a little bit confused, going towards a little bit aspects that you'd want in sort of a more endurance-y tyre, that puncture resistance, that wet weather grip. But at the same time, they've got quite a lot of qualities that are going to be sort of desirable in a racing situation, and in the hand, they do feel quite light. But what do they actually come in at?
Yeah, I mean, we just weighed them just now, and that came in at 258 grams compared to the Vittoria Corsa N.ext. I mean, that's not a heavy tyre, but it weighs just over 300 grams. I actually weighed that as well. That's like 307, 308. So they're pretty lightweight, but they're claiming durability and puncture resistance.
Well, there you go. I mean, in a race situation where the conditions aren't always predictable, having wet weather grip that's fast sounds pretty ideal. Now, it's pretty clear that these look very nice, but Simon, how long do you think these white walls are going to stay white?
Well, if you're using rim brakes with them, then they wouldn't stay looking white for very long. But because they're hookless compatible, then, hopefully or possibly you're going to be using hookless wheels with them. You don't have to. But if you do use hookless wheels, then obviously you're going to be using disc brakes as well. So they're going to stay white for a bit longer.
There you go. Going to look fresh all summer long. So, Stefan, I can't help but notice this lovely bike sitting behind us. What is it? Why is it special? And what's this new material?
So this is Vast's most recent bike. It's the R1, and it was recently launched just a few weeks ago. The most notable thing about it is that it's a magnesium framed bike, and it's not something that you see so much these days. There are examples, going back into the 90s especially, of a magnesium framed bikes, but currently there's not so many on the market. But Vast is fully behind magnesium as the material of choice. We've got a lot of good things to say about its performance, about its sustainability, about its environmental credentials, but then equally, it's the unique selling point of Vast, isn't it? That it's producing these magnesium bikes. So it's not a market segment that's particularly populous right now, and so I thought that it'd be quite nice to run through some other components, some other brands that are using the material, their reasons for using it, and then we can hop back and have a look at the bike and see exactly what qualities Vast think that they are able to sort of build into the frame.
So where have we seen magnesium used?
Currently, I've got these lovely pedals from DMR, and for gravel bikes, if you're wanting to get to know the area sort of culturally as well as just for roads and trails, getting to experience the castles, cathedrals, sort of walking around and touring a little bit, it's quite nice to have flat pedals and flat shoes. And so I've had these on the test for that, but they're magnesium, and if you hold them in your hand,
it's surprisingly light. I mean, when I picked them up at first, you expected a lot more weight to them, and it's they're just so light.
Yeah, it's really quite incredible. In fact, these ones, you can get them with a titanium axle, but these ones are just chromo steel. But it's really interesting that you can kind of feel where the fulcrum is for the pedals. It's, this far along. If those axles were the titanium ones, these would be incredibly light indeed, but even so, it's about 350 grams for the set.
Not bad at all. And I believe that these are actually made using a die casting process rather than CNC, which is obviously what a lot of pedals are actually made by. But it means that these are made with very little waste. So big green scores for magnesium there.
Exactly. Magnesium is supposed to be easier to recycle and use when you're making these products. But as you say, being die cast rather than CNC'd, you're using just as much material as the finished product. You're not ending up with shavings all over the floor. So environmental, not just in the material itself, but in the production too.
Cool. So where else have we seen magnesium, Simon?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about this earlier on, and I remember the Kirk Precision, which was a sort of, it was die cast as well, actually. It was ridden in the Tour de France. It was a sort of funny shaped, sort of looked like a sort of collection of struts, actually.
Yes.
And that was a British firm, and they were using magnesium. But it's interesting that it's been hanging on really in these pedals here, even though we've seen it mostly go away. Apart from, there was also a magnesium Pinarello Dogma. So magnesium has really been around and hasn't really ever completely gone away. And it's interesting to see that it could be on its way back.
Yeah, and how do these pedals last for you? Because I was speaking to Quinton at Hombike, which we'll get on to his magnesium products in a little bit, but he was saying to me that he had some magnesium pedals back in the 90s, but the problem was that it relied on the paint to prevent the corrosion, like so many things do, but that meant that once you chipped the paint, then the material is going to become quite bobbly and quite sort of corroded quite quickly.
Well, this is exactly, it's a really good point you bring up here though, Stefan. How are they processing magnesium now to ensure that doesn't happen?
And so, exactly, so speaking to Quinton from Hombike, and Hombike is an e-bike brand, a utility e-bike brand for riding around the city. And so particularly when it comes to the wheels, with these wheels from Hombike, they're solid wheels. They've got these 3 spokes, or 6 maybe if you count them a bit differently. These are sort of bonded to the rim, so there's no need to be truing them. They're going to stay as true as, well, hopefully, the day that you got them. What's quite interesting is that these are produced by an automotive manufacturer, and the alloy that is used is one that doesn't corrode. If you scratch it, it will oxidize instantly, and you're not going to get that corrosion, that bobbly effect with it. And so there seems to be some development with the alloys that are being used in the magnesium products today, and so making for something that's quite robust and lightweight as well.
I think magnesium, the welds on this bike, magnesium looks as if it's pretty difficult to weld.
yeah, let's come to the bike now. Vast are pretty upfront. They have these, they've got all these claims about the qualities of magnesium and just how good it is, how much better than aluminium it is. But they're also, quite modest in certain respects. I mean, aluminium has been sort of like the processes for building with aluminium have been refined, so much over the past few decades, whereas magnesium, and well, for Vast at least, like they're right at the beginning of the development for it. And so, when you look at the welds, some of them, maybe not quite the prettiest at all. But then it's also quite interesting for the weight that they've managed to produce the frame at. And so the claimed weight for this frame is 1,250 grams, which
incredibly light.
Yeah, that is really notably light, especially for a metal frame. The Alley Sprinter recently released, is reportedly said to weigh about 1,500 grams, and whereas this bike is coming in significantly cheaper than in this build in particular. I mean, it's got the Praxis crankset, which I feel like I'd rather take a higher face value spend, to be honest. But that's just personal preference in the end, isn't it? But still, it's a fair chunk cheaper than the Alley Sprint. But the frame weight at least is a little bit lighter, which is quite interesting, especially right at the beginning of Vast's development of magnesium technology.
So Stefan, the magnesium, obviously we know the manufacturing process is pretty green. What about actually getting the magnesium itself in the first place? What's that like, and where are they getting it from?
Yeah, so there's a number of different ways of getting hold of the magnesium. DMR, they're getting it from seawater, and other manufacturers have got their magnesium from seawater. Apparently it takes 1.5 cubic meters of seawater to have enough magnesium to build a bike, which is just an incredible thought,
Quite
really.
remarkable, that, isn't it?
Yeah. But for Vast, they're getting, 60% of their magnesium comes recycled from the automotive industry, and when it's already processed and you're just melting it down and putting it back in, that is really the greenest way of doing it, and so that's where they're getting 60% of the magnesium, for at the very least, for each of their frames.
So do you think that we could eventually see magnesium replacing aluminium as kind of the go-to metal alloy?
I think potentially. What I heard from Quentin from Hombike is that it was almost political, the choice for aluminium over magnesium after the Second World War. But with the qualities and that we've seen in so many of these products, it seems as though there's real advantages for magnesium. And so, on the face of it, without having ridden the bike yet, it does seem like there's quite a lot of mileage in it.
Absolutely. So with a new material and new innovation, obviously that can often come at a price tag. What's this one behind me going to set you back?
Well, so it's not as cheap as you can get aluminium bikes for, but I think that the interesting thing is that it's not as expensive as what you might call a performance aluminium bike, and I'm thinking of, the Alley Sprint is like the pinnacle of that, and so it's coming in at $2,299, and the same in pounds, which makes things quite easy, and that's significantly below the Specialized Alley Sprint, which is $3,000, and so, it's significantly cheaper. The frame is supposed to be 250 grams lighter. Things are looking, pretty good so far right at the start on just the stats for magnesium.
And for Vast, obviously, this is kind of genesis for them in terms of where they're going with their magnesium bikes. We can only really hope and anticipate that really the bikes are only ever going to get better. They're going to get prettier in terms of the welds, the weights are going to get better. So there's a lot there to be developed. In terms of initial ride feels, do we know much about magnesium and how it should feel?
Well, they do claim that it's supposed to have a more sort of a vibration dampening quality than aluminium. Okay. But to be honest, with this bike, it can take tyres up to 32 millimeters, and it's the same for the Alley Sprint. And I think that maybe if you're riding like 23s or 25s pumped up to 100 plus PSI, then maybe the ride quality of the frame comes into things a bit more. At 32 millimeters, it's really the tyres that are kind of like dampening all sort of like signals there, I think. So there is that claim, but whether it's really going to shine through, I think is a little bit more in the air.
Well, there we have it. We've only just taken delivery of the bike, so I believe, Stefan, you're going to have this one on test for a little while longer. And, basically, watch this space and we'll find out how good it really is. As always, we have got the Garmin giveaway, and this month we are going to be giving away the Garmin Rally XC100 pedals. And I believe, Stefan, you actually ride with these pedals, don't you? What are they like?
Yeah, they've proven pretty good, quite robust. I've had a few pedal strikes now, and the power readings, they're still reading sensibly. And so, in terms of the robustness and the reliability, I think that they are pretty good. And obviously with the 100s, they're only left side sensing, but you can always upgrade later on and swap out the pedal bodies even to road with cleats if you like. So it's a very
true.
versatile pedal.
That's the best thing about the rallies, isn't it? The fact that you can just move them across to no matter what discipline you're using, which makes them absolutely great. So guys, if you're interested in getting your hands on a set of those pedals, then head down into the link in the description. It'll be right at the top. Click on that, answer the question, and you'll be in with your chance to win some of those pedals.
So for Bike of the Month this month, we've got the new monocoque frame from Enve. Now this is the second frame that Enve have made. The first one was the custom road, which was, as it sounds, a custom road bike that was made in Utah at Enve HQ. Now this one's a monocoque that's made in the Far East. So this is really telling us that Enve is trying to move into the mass production frame market. Sam, you went to see it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so they had two launches in the UK. So I went to the one that was in London. It was quite interesting. They've clearly put a lot of thought into it. But I think one of my takeaways was that it felt a little bit confused, actually. And they say that it's a race bike. But there's also parts to the bike which make me question whether that's what its real use is for. Because it's got mudguard mounts, it can fit 35C tyres. To me, it almost felt more like an Athos rather than a SL7.
Is that a bad thing? It's just the way they're branding it, I guess.
I think it is, yeah. I think it's more so the way that they're branding it, which makes it feel confused, actually. I think if they were to sell it as kind of an adventure road performance bike, it makes perfect sense. But to call it a race bike, that's where, for me, it feels a little bit off.
Yeah, in terms of the front end, like, is it still sort of slammed quite low at the front? Is it maybe more like similar to like the Gribble Endurance, maybe, which is well, ostensibly like a race bike in terms of its geometry, but then being a British brand, it also does have the mudguard mounts, and if you want to replicate your position riding through the winter, it's quite useful for that. And so, is it aggressive the geometry?
It's a really good point, and yes, it is aggressive, and it does now take into account their new bar and stem system. They made a new stem that also launched at the same time as this bike, so they could have all the integrated hoses, which obviously looks very nice. But I think that's a really good comparison actually to make. So it is an aggressive geometry, it is a race bike, but it's just got some cues of other disciplines.
I mean, the other thing was about it being a race bike or not. It's not particularly light, is it?
No, so the frame actually comes in at 850 grams, which isn't necessarily the lightest thing in the world at all, and it's not an aero bike either. Obviously, you've got some, the tube shapes are optimised, but it's not an aero bike by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, that's obviously being Enve and all the components they currently make. They've clearly optimised it around everything they do have. So where you've got that new bar and stem, seat post, saddle, which they've now brought out, their wheels. It makes a very nice home for all of these very shiny components that they make. But a full Enve build with all of that finishing kit, all those wheels and the frame, it's not going to be cheap.
Okay, so they're selling it just as a frame set. So how much does it cost?
So here in the UK, it's £5,300, and in the States, it's $5,500. So not cheap.
Yeah, what about aligned with other bikes like a Specialized Athos?
So yeah, with an Athos, an S-Works Athos frame set will cost you £4,500. So you're making about £1,000 saving there, and it's a much lighter bike as well.
So how do we know it's any better than other monocoque frames that are made in the Far East?
I think that's a really good point, and I think there's one key thing to remember here, is that although this is their first frame, Enve have been around for a really long time. We've all dribbled over their components. So, we've got wheels, carbon bars, carbon stems, seat posts. They know how to make things and make them well. And of course, they've got history making forks. They've made forks for Cervelo. They've made rear triangles for Cervelo. So, they've just kind of put all of their knowledge together and have then created the full bike. So I think actually you can have quite a lot of confidence and faith in what they've produced. I think the key thing though, again, is that I want to get our hands on one, give it a test, see how it performs. So there we have it. Let us know what you think about that Enve Melee, and do drop a comment down below about your thoughts on magnesium and the future of it, because I think it's safe to say we think it could be the way forwards. If you enjoyed the video, drop it a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and we will see you again very soon.
They're designed to go head to head or tread to tread.
Ooh. That's very good.